Holy cow, it's time for another Sacred Cow Barbecue. Grab a plate if you're hungry for some truth. We're here to free our minds from our collective BS, our belief systems programmed into us through a lifetime of indoctrination by school, church, and media. No subjects off limits. Why? Because it's all connected. Stay tuned. Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Sacred Cow Barbecue. This silly thing that I can't have people here and the studio at the same time. I can do it after the break, but not before the break. So I always have to be bringing my guests in late, and I apologize for them. And then you have to listen to the phones ringing and all that. But we're more technologically advanced than that. This is Patricia Aiken. I am an average host with exceptional guests and just not the best technical ability tonight. But before I bring in my co-host and guest for tonight's show, it's going to be awesome, by the way, I'm so excited to welcome Sacred Cow Barbecue's first official sponsor. Check this out. Jack Wright from Free Spirit Energy. Thank you so much for wanting to join forces.
No, thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. Listen, off-grid living, RVs, campers, even boats are rapidly growing lifestyles. Us baby boomers are retiring and hitting the road and off-road. And I see all kinds of very cool rehabbed campers by millennials, too, wanting to explore life on their own terms. What can Free Spirit Energy do for them?
Well, that's a good question. And the deal is that I should tell you how I got into this.
Great.
My wife and I are ardent campers. And years ago, we bought a used camper and went up to Idaho and Utah and things like that, and found that the limitations of the battery in the camper put me in a situation where I had to start my truck up every day and run it for a half hour to recharge the battery. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you have a V10 and gas back then was $4 a gallon, it got to be pretty expensive. So I started kicking around the idea of alternative power. Although I had a very small solar panel on the top of the camper, it did not produce enough electricity to top the batteries off. So when we got back from vacation, I started tinkering around and found someone who could make an efficient, lightweight, powerful little wind generator. And we cut a deal with them, and they produced it to our specs, and we invented the mounting system. Man, the mounting system is the important thing, one of the really important things, because it allows you to put it up and take it down in seconds. So this
is this now? I'm unclear. Like if you were just going down the road, you wouldn't want to have it out, right?
No, that's why you have an alternator or generator on your truck.
Okay.
Or car, and I maybe that sounds like a silly question, but I get that a lot. The camper is about, let's say, 10 feet up off the ground, the roof of the camper. And then you go another 36 inches, another 3 feet, and you're up in the air 14 feet. I don't think you want to be driving down the road with an apparatus on top of your vehicle that's 14 feet high.
Probably not. Probably not. And so what does this allow you to do? So when you use this, then you can stay out camping like off-grid longer?
Yeah. I mean, the bottom line is that all batteries are in a consistent state of discharge. I don't care what kind of battery you have or what it's used for or anything else, they're in a consistent state of discharge. So if you're out someplace and you don't have an electrical hookup, how are you going to top off your batteries? Well, some people can do it solar, and solar is fantastic, but it's only good full power for about 4 or 5 hours a day, and it doesn't work at night or on real cloudy days. The efficiency diminishes. However, if you have a wind generator and you have some wind, and you just put it up there and forget it, and you can see it spinning and turning, you can hear it gently, and it's just like putting a trickle charger on your battery, and it delivers on the average probably 2 amps or more, and replenishes the battery that you run down during the day or night or whatever. And it's simple. The biggest problem that we've had with this system is people overthink it. I mean, wind generators have been around since the first century BC. I mean, they
No. Wait. First century BC?
Yeah, I just read that. Yeah, wind generators, not electric, windmills.
Yeah, windmill. Okay, all right.
The generating any kind of electricity happened in the turn of the century, this century. So, I mean, it's just a simple deal. And this is a small, incised wind generator that can be taken apart and put into three pieces, and can be stowed extremely easily, and it can be put up real quick. So it's kind of a no muss, no fuss. Besides that, it's really cool. I got to tell you,
I've seen the pictures of it. Looks cool. It's kind of like a spinning daisy.
Yeah, it kind of does kind of look like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that you don't worry about it. There's no upkeep to it. You don't have to oil it or clean the glass off.
Really, you're serious? There's no maintenance to it?
No. You just put it together, throw it up there, plug it into your battery system, and walk away. The only thing that you have to be careful of is if the wind's blowing over 35 miles an hour, you got to take it down.
Okay. So real windy days. I know there's big fancy ones. They kind of close up and protect themselves if the wind gets too.
Yeah, you're talking about wind generators right now that have folding tails and stuff like that cost about $1,000 at least, and they're great units. But the problem is that, and I have looked at them extensively, they're big and they're heavy, and they're very difficult to mount. And you want to be able to mount one of these wind generators up in the air above your camper so you have some clean air to have the wind generator to deal with.
Well, let me ask you this. How much of one of these bad boys going to set somebody back?
Well, about $395 on the average plus shipping. However, if anybody wants to order from your show, we'll give away 30 feet of 14-gauge wire and free shipping if they put in the code and PayPal of BBQ.
Okay.
So that's about, I don't know, $40, $50 off or whatever.
Wow, that's really generous. Thank you. That's awesome.
Well, give your listeners something to chew on. There's something else I'd really like to mention. The website, and I think you've been to it, is really an example of hard work and tenacity on my wife's part, because it is absolutely beautiful. And if you go to that website and you have questions, you don't know how to read.
Yeah,
I mean, it
is. When I looked at it, I says, I get what's going on here. And that's freespiritenergy.com. CK in the chat room already put that in. Isn't that awesome?
freespiritenergy.com.
Yeah. Yep, they're all over it.
We've had great acceptance of this. We were awarded in 2013, Truck Camper Magazine's Reader's Choice Award for the best truck camper gear of the year, and that was the first year we were in business. So they had 40 or 50,000 people vote on the newest widgets and gadgets that go on these truck campers, and we walked away with the prize.
Cool. Well, I've got a bunch more questions. Can we do this again next week?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Jack Wright from Free Spirit Energy, thank you so much. Welcome to the barbecue. I'm delighted.
Thank you very much, Patricia, for the opportunity.
Okay, see you next week.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Wow, is this cool or what? I'm just so excited about that. Now I'm going to dial in my guests because I've got some really cool guests coming on tonight, and wait till you hear from them. Let's see. Okay, I got one here. Dialing him in. Let's bring the second one in. Okay, people, wait till you hear this. Well, I'm pretty darn excited about that. Free Spirit Energy. I am a camper wannabe. I want to be like a Class B, I think. I don't think I want a big one. I'm all excited about what I need to know about that. So listen, we're trying to bring in my co-host, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He is my original friend from the Bundy Ranch. I was hanging out one Sunday afternoon after the standoff with a group of folks, and there was a policy about press. And so I thought it was important that I identify myself, that I was covering the story for the Nationalist Times. So we chatted some more, and Buddy looked at me and said, "You don't talk like a reporter." I was busted. Yeah, activist reporter. So he's been my friend ever since, and it's about time. I don't know
Hi,
why I can't.
Patricia, are you there?
Yes. Well, I'm just going to have to tell you that this is all Buddy's fault. We're going to talk bad about him.
Yeah, I agree. Let's
he,
let him have it.
yeah, he called me this week and said, "I've got an awesome guest for your show," and he got me all excited. He said, "Stop! I'm getting too excited." I said, "Just set it up." So I'm really grateful to Buddy, and hopefully he'll be able to come in here. I don't know why we're not. We talked earlier. We had all kinds of stuff going on. I'm happy to welcome my guest, and obviously he's a radio veteran. He's an economist. He's a writer for Breitbart, international consultant, university lecturer. I could go on and on. He's Mr. Chris Street. Chris, welcome to the barbecue. Thanks for making time tonight.
Hey, I think I need to get barbecued a bit tonight.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we take it all on, man. We take it all.
There you go.
Yeah, you know what? I've got a first-time guest rule here at the barbecue. You have to let us know where you were raised, who your mom and dad were, how you started to wake up that what was being said in the mainstream, and I mean academia as well, wasn't adding up. What's your story?
Well, I'm from Teeth Are Optional, California, Redding in Northern California. And, I grew up with my grandfather was a sheet metal worker, and my dad was a truck driver. And we grew up in the sunniest town in America. And Redding is just the greatest place in Northern California to be a kid. And, we all thought it was wonderful. Grew up in the 50s and 60s. And, the life was just couldn't be better. And, then I went on to go to universities and things like that and left the area. And then my parents followed back. But over time, the sad part about it, just see how much modern America, has undermined places like Redding.
Oh my gosh. I hear that. You had dessert first growing up in Redding at that time.
It was all dessert.
Yeah, it was. Hey, listen, let's see if we can bring Buddy in. Maybe you can try him from your side. Can you add him to yours?
I'm not sure I can do that. I'm gonna try it right. I don't know if this is gonna work. Let's try.
Okay, if it screws, hey, listen, I'm a veteran of screwed up Skype calls, so don't worry. We'll put it all back together if we have to. Oh my gosh, I don't know why Skype is so problematic these days, but I'm gonna bring Chris Street back in. By the way, Chris's name is Chris with 2 S's.
Hello, 1 2 3 1 2 3.
Okay, 4 5 6. Hey, we got it. We got it.
We got it. Good.
Hey, buddy, we talked all the smack about you. We could talk, so now we get to be nice, Chris. Okay.
Okay.
Better be.
He deserves a little. Yeah, he deserves a little comeback from the low we put him in.
Yeah. Well, buddy, it's about time you're here at the barbecue. You have been. I told everyone you were my original friend from the Bundy Ranch, and I'm so delighted that you set this up with Chris tonight. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Well, listen, Chris, you're an economist. That's like a 4-letter word to me. I don't think they know what the hell they're doing. Well, actually, I think they know what the hell they're doing. I think they're destroying countries.
Well, I put a piece out today about economists. You got to be careful when you say economists, because there are people who are into religion and there are people who are into facts. You could be a social scientist and you could create a religion around it, and that religion can sort of be self-reinforcing. And one of the greatest economists of all time was a guy named Lord Keynes, Keynesian economics. But the fun part about Keynesian economics is he was really a stock investor, and he kept changing his philosophy according to what happened in markets. So although over time, he was astounded how America picked up the things that he had worked on and turned that into sort of some religious fact. He said that the United States became more Keynesian than he was. And what he meant by that is that this is really about a competition between people who, want socialism and people who want free markets. And they'll find a way to collectivize something and find a beautiful set of, gowns and hats and gloves to match it. And they'll call that an economic philosophy. But there's nothing wrong with the concept of studying markets. There's always something wrong with the concept of papering over reality.
Right. Right. And here's the thing, Chris. I have two principles that I go by. Number one, very little of our reality is based on truth. And two, I live in opposite land. When I want to know the truth, I just take whatever the mainstream is saying, and that includes academia, and I turn it around 180 degrees and feel like I'm a lot closer to the truth doing that.
Okay. That's the competition of ideas, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, I am more empathetic to failure. And by that, what I mean is that it is a common human trait to believe that the things that you've experienced are the reality for the universe. And this was shown to be so clear in the last election. I do what's called big data analysis. And what it does is I pay Facebook for all your inside, deepest secrets. I don't get your name, but I pay them for the data feed, and I know what you're talking about. Not as an individual, but as a group. Mm-hmm. And I know if I wanted to pay for it, I could go all the way down to the individual level. But I can see the trends as they're developing and as they're fading, that the media is just perplexed by, because people operate on three levels. They operate on the level of their family. They operate on the level of their community. And then they operate also in this sort of joint participation in something called America. And if you really start to understand them, they're really about their family and their community, less America. So if you can get the real data from them on the internet, they call this big data, you could see where these trends are going. And it is very clear, and your listeners really need to put this in perspective, that you need to have empathy for the left, because they just lost the next century. They didn't lose an election. They lost 100 years.
Chris, could I interject here? Could you please explain to me Obama's universe?
Well, Obama's universe is his reality check, right? He grew up as a poor kid, in a beachy town called Waikiki, in a penthouse, and they went to the United States' most expensive private high school and grade school called Punahou. He then, went off to Indonesia and lived in the oil sort of compound for the expatriates, came back to the U.S., and went off to college, at Occidental for a year, and then on to Columbia and on to Harvard, and then on to the University of Chicago. So his reality you could get those same kind of people in one building. That's really the universe of people he's dealt with. Getting out there in the real world, what I called teeth are optional America, the rural kind of country that I grew up in, that, where families really count. He just doesn't know anything about that. His reality is very, very narrow. He doesn't get out much.
Well, Chris, I have the impression, and I can back it up, that it really doesn't matter who's in the White House, that there's an unseen hand behind that there's so many forces behind that it's heads I win, tails you lose, regardless of. Tell me where we've had improvement in the last 50 years when, the Republicans are in the White House. At most, it just slows it down a little bit.
Okay, let me tell you that economics drives politics, not politics drives economics. For 100 years, from 1870 to 1970, the United States took over the world. And the reason they took over the world wasn't because of capitalism or, we were, we had some characteristics about us. It was the simple fact that in a manufacturing environment, the United States had energy costs that were a third of world prices. Now, I'm going to give you a real easy way to understand manufacturing, why all of it's going to come back here again today, because miraculously in the last 8 years, energy prices in the United States for natural gas have dropped to 1/3 or even 1/4 of world cost. Now, if I'm going to be a manufacturer, 75% of what I make, I'm actually going to purchase from other people in the form of raw materials and things like that. What I really do as a manufacturer is I do energy input and I do labor and overhead input. Now, labor and overhead is about 8.5% of the cost of manufacturing, but energy at all levels from transportation to input and everything is about 13%. So with America's natural gas prices today, you can't afford to give your labor away for free in China and be competitive. Think about what I just said. It's economic suicide to try to compete against the United States in manufacturing. This isn't going to happen a day and a week and a month, but it's like the biggest freight train going down the tracks.
Okay, so you're saying that all the jobs that we have shipped out of this country, India, China, all the manufacturing that's being done other places is coming back to the U.S. Is that what you're saying?
Not all the manufacturing. All of the manufacturing with large amounts of energy input. This is, basic industry and things that, consume massive amounts of electricity or use natural gas and such like that.
Like what?
Any kind of metal forming, steel making, aluminum making. The average energy cost is 13% for all products. Now, of course, service products and such like that, brooms and such like that, they're never coming back. I mean, there's just not enough energy input into it. When you talk about manufactured high quality goods, that has an average in America of 13% around the world. But when you talk about steel, it's 23%.
So steel's coming back?
Yes. When you talk about aluminum, it's 34%. So I don't care if you have 8% labor cost and you give 100% of your labor cost away. If you have a 34% input for aluminum for energy, and I only pay a third of that, about 11 cents, that 22-cent difference is going to crush any advantage of labor discounts that you have outsourcing anywhere else.
So, Chris, let me make sure I understand. You're saying that Obama was given the golden goose, and in spite of himself, America kept going because of what you just said.
Well, he's the classic fool who, all he knows is what he's been told and what he's read. So if you hang out in a small area and you sort of deal with the people who are the losers, because remember that the United States that all of the things that sort of collapsed in the United States when it came to economics, they started in the 70s, but when Bill Clinton became president in 1993, when he entered office, there were only 3 million illegal aliens in America. When he left office, there were 8.3 million. There's only 11 now. When you take a look at the jobs and energy and such like that, the deficit wasn't really a big deal when Bill Clinton came into office. When he left office, it was becoming a big deal. And by the time Obama's got done, it's $20 trillion. Most of that 25-year period of the deficit isn't really money squandered. It's money that was spent to try to make up for the fact that you lost your economic engine. So I understand that government squanders money and does stupid things with it, but they were trying to prevent society from understanding that America had lost its competitive base. They were sort of driving towards the cliff faster.
Right. Well, I know, for instance, with metals, like when you want to recycle cars or big, you pull out refrigeration units and things like that, and you got to have some place you set them to, scrap metal place. There's no scrap metal places on the West Coast anymore. It all gets shipped to China. Is that coming back?
Well, remember that World War II started over things like, scrap metal and, energy, right? It was energy exports to Japan. But, the idea that you'd be breaking down products, depending if there's enough energy in it that you want to recycle it here. Right now, all of that stupid recycling paper that these idiot cities go through to collect, all of that gets shipped over to China where it's, the worst environmental uses possible, process that paper, and they ship it back to here because the friction costs for all the environmental and other stuff is so high here in the United States that it gets outsourced. I live in California. You know, the what would you call it? The People's Republic of California.
Sure.
If
Absolutely.
you get an economic boom here in manufacturing, California still is America's largest manufacturing platform. Did you know where the hottest economic boom in manufacturing is in the world today? It's in the 909 Riverside and San Bernardino. It's booming. The property's booming. If you take a look at real estate prices in London, they just had this thing called the Brexit.
Mm-hmm.
They're collapsing in London. You know where they're booming in England? In what's called the Midlands.
Midlands, sure. That's where
Right.
all the factories are.
That's where all the clothes factories. All of that's getting leased up. Rents are going up. You can see it looks like a V experience for the UK on manufacturing since the Brexit. So I'm telling you that, you know, people like Barack Obama are surrounded by folks that know all of what is wrong and have no vision about what will be. But
Right. If we were really mature people, that we wouldn't see problems, we'd see opportunities. And America could overcome this, but we have, like you said, this radicalized environmental agenda that is so damaging to business in America.
But it's very hard to have a constituency that supports manufacturing and more realistic, you know, environmental rules when you don't know very many people making $26 an hour in manufacturing and getting 10 hours a week in overtime, you know, time and a half and double time. When that starts to pop, it's going to change the equation. You know, people have to have a dog in the hunt. And that was the problem, is that United States had a change in economic competitiveness. You know, we lost our manufacturing advantage that had crushed the world. We crushed the UK. We crushed Germany. We crushed Japan. It was really about America. We lost that.
It was
EPA.
oil.
It was oil.
Well, what about
prices,
all the regulations? The regulations killed us.
I mean, the regulations killed stuff that was already dying. You know, there was no constituency when it's dying. I'm saying that you're on the front end of a boom. They're going to do this in places. If you travel through the South right now, it's a building boom of big factories. You know, Ford and these
Get out, really?
Oh, absolutely. Go to Alabama and Mississippi. You know, I had a factory down in UCLA. You ever heard of UCLA?
Yeah.
Upacona, Loa, Alabama. So UCLA, most people, you know, in Alabama aren't going to go to the university, but they all know what the Upacona, Loa, Alabama is. So if you go out to where people really are people and families, and you can afford to have a family, I mean, these places are booming. Tennessee, you know, Mississippi. I mean, they got five car assembly plants in Mississippi now.
So Chris, it's oil. You're saying once we get the oil going
I'm saying
again,
it's comparative advantage. Stop worrying about all this little crap that goes on and worry about tsunamis. You know, did anybody ever tell you the story of Fukushima, you know, the Japanese nuclear power plant?
Yeah.
No. I mean, tell me.
It's in a tsunami environment. The plant was built for a 33-meter tsunami. That's 100 feet. They have tsunamis there all the time. They actually have a line painted where people would go up in the hill and they'd stand there until the end of the tsunami. The horn would go off. You go back up there. They have the thing. They had a 45-meter tsunami, and the plant didn't fail. All of it worked except the diesel tank on the back of the plant had 4 main bolts that the wave was so big, it busted the diesel tank off, and it's floated away, and there was no way to cool those reactors, and the whole thing melted down. So when you see that tsunami coming in the 70s and 80s, it was very easy to understand what it would look like later. At the time, people didn't understand it. They do now.
Okay, well, I've been waiting. I'm a doom and gloomer to a certain extent because of fiat currency. You know, we have fake money, and and you've never seen fake money, fiat money, that hasn't eventually gone to the fiat currency graveyard. Every single one of them has failed. So how are they keep blowing this bubble? I expected this thing to be over, to have an economic collapse summer of 2010, and here it is 6.5 years later and still chugging along. The grocery store is outrageous. The prices there are unbelievable compared to what they were 7 years ago.
So you want to talk about dead presidents, right? Pictures of dead
Let's talk dead presidents. You got it.
Okay, dead. Currency has value in that it has exchange. It's a confidence game, right?
Right, con game. Yep.
Confidence. I didn't say con game. I said confidence game. It becomes a con game over time, or it can be. Now, look at the United States, and we may have been doing bad, but almost everybody else was doing worse. It was the United States, shockingly triumphed over the Soviet Union. All those economists that you're dealing with, like Barack Obama, all the people are his friends. The famous people like Larry Summers, who went out yesterday, said, Trump's advisors, are, creationists, and voodoo economics. I happen to know Trump's advisors. I happen to have been one of the people that helped put together a movie called Death by China in 2013 that really went through the issues that how China was really tearing apart the United States. Now, in 2010, you would have been absolutely right to believe that the fiat currency was going to collapse. And Barack Obama was obviously the person that was going to make it much, much worse. But the tsunami had already started because fracking started in 2006. By 2008, nobody in Washington knew a clue about it. Everybody in North Dakota, in parts of Pennsylvania, and down in Oklahoma and Texas, and even California, were getting pretty hot on it, and it was happening. So all of this investment was booming while the rest of it was collapsing. And that investment it's as big as the semiconductor boom. The technology driving fracking is doubling the production from a single well every 18 months. That's the same curve as the economics for the growth of semiconductors.
Well, this fracking thing, I'm concerned about it.
What do you want to know about fracking? Want to know about the earthquakes?
I want to know about when you have people that say that their livestock and themselves are getting poisoned because the quality of their water has been poisoned from the fracking.
Okay, let me describe you the difference between fracking and regular oil drilling. You don't know this, but environmentalists...
I'm sure I don't.
Okay, well, California is the environmental capital of the universe, correct?
Well, when it suits them.
Okay, 50% of all oil wells being drilled in California being fracked right now. Mm-hmm. Jerry Brown exempted water use during the drought for fracking because the oil revenues in California are so important to keep the state from collapsing and going bankrupt. But when you look at fracking, the difference in fracking is I inject water into a hole. The problem with injecting water into a hole means that the side of the hole is going to get all muddy and collapse on me all the time. Mm-hmm. So I have to build a cement dam around it. So if I build a cement dam around my drilling hole, how can that be less environmentally sensitive than if I just, vertically drill a hole down in the ground? Having said that, fracking takes place normally at around 8,000 to 12,000 feet down, and most water is between 1,500 and 3,000 feet down. The way you used to find oil in America is you'd walk around and step in it. That's how oil was really discovered in America.
That's right. I learned that on the Beverly Hillbillies. Didn't you, buddy?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
With a shovel and a shotgun.
When you do fracking, what you're looking for is properties that actually, in the turn of the century when the oil boom was really booming, really weren't the most ideal for oil drilling because they were sort of the tar and clay. Tar was in the clay, was kind of glommed together, and would come out as kind of glunk.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't get nice. You didn't hit the pool, and you got the nice clear stream. But the difference in fracking is that when you drill a well, if I stop drilling because the prices go down, everything I drilled is pretty much wasted because I'll lose the oil pressure. When you drill a well for fracking, if the price goes down, it's not economic. You walk away a month, a year, 2 years. When the prices come back up, you go back down there and you finish the well. So it's a continuous process of oil availability.
All right. I'm taking all this in, Chris. By the way, I want to let everybody know that you can find Chris's articles on Breitbart by when you go to Breitbart.com. You'll have a hard time seeing it. It's right at the top. There's the search, box there. It's just slightly less dark than the rest of the page, but just type his name in there, and it's Chris with 2 S's and Street, and you'll come up with all his articles. They're really fascinating. I was doing a crash course on your writing earlier today, Chris. So thank you very much. I'm talking to an economist here tonight, and all around brilliant kind of guy, Buddy told me.
Yeah, he is. He is.
You said Chris. A 4-letter word. You started out saying it's a 4-letter word. I think there's another 4-letter word here, and that's good. What America is positioned for right now is a very good situation versus the world. You have had an election where all of the rules have been broken because all of the people that made the rules, nobody was listening to. Think about that. You had, the equivalent of the Borg, this incredible infrastructure of media, power, fiat money, military, NSA, government, all of this together on one side versus folks on the other side. Who won the folks? Do you really think that the folks don't understand they've won?
Trump spoke to America, and that's what other candidates in the past, conservative, cuck-servatives, whatever you want to call them, missed out on. They forgot to address Main Street America and what you call teeth-optional kind of places and really talk to people. And they forgot how to do that.
Well, nobody, don't ever expect government to be on the cutting edge. I mean, that's just not what they do. I mean, government is a service. They don't actually produce anything. I mean, you have
service.
a military.
No, there's no service.
Well, I'm more, Patricia, I understand, it would be great if you didn't have it, but then people start complaining, need roads, and there's some other issues. There are rational things for government.
Oh, yes.
The difference is this time, not like Reagan's time. In Reagan's time, he never had the House of Representatives behind him, and he only had the Senate for 2 years. This is the first time in a long, long time where you've got a president, you've got the House, and you've got the Senate, and you have this jughead called Harry Reid who changed the filibuster rules in the Senate that allows you to basically now get an appointee in with 50 votes. So the Republicans are going to get all of their people approved, which means they're going to get to go to the regulatory level and change the whole damn thing.
Well, you are a breath of fresh air on that, Chris, just as Buddy assured me you would be.
Let me just temper a little bit real quick here, Chris. I'm more of a pessimist like Patricia. But what you're saying, anybody listening to this show would say, you are saying it is going to be a boom, get out of the way. It's like, who was the Chrysler guy that said, if you can't lead, get out of the way?
Lee Iacocca.
So this boom, now most of the people listening, like myself, I'm not going to play the stock market. I'm not going to go the boom thing. All I want to know is 2 things. How are we going to stop the BLM from stealing property? And number 2, let me just give you a second one, then you can pick which one you want. And you said this for the 25 years I've known you. You predicted the crash, the bankruptcy, which is the public sector union pensions. So you pick either one of those two for the people that want to say, hey, we're reality. We want to know that everything's going to be fine and we want our land back.
Okay, you people got your hands on your 10 and 2. What part of socialism and communism do you not understand? Soviet communism collapsed in the 1990s. It just out of nowhere, the whole thing imploded. It was so bad that China didn't have any trading partners, so they did a deal with Japan, the U.S., and Europe that we allowed them to drastically devalue their currency and start trading with Western countries. That was a change of the millennium. I mean that's a millennium. But all of these communists and socialists and people who really believe that collectivism and that if the state owns it, it's much more efficient than they came back. They came back in this new environmental movement, in this new regionalism movement. Everything they did was the same collectivist. Did you know what Soviet actually means? It means regionalism.
Well, do you realize that we've been a communist country ever since the Reconstruction Acts and the 14th Amendment? That's when this big centralized thing took over.
I understand that it was there. It was overwhelmed by the economics.
Yeah, but
until the economics
70s,
stopped.
you're right. It was the 70s when the neocons came to power and started all this misguided police state nonsense. That's been so well, let's not call it nonsense. Let's call it what it really is: tyranny.
Well, it's collectivism is always collectivism is not tyranny if I run it. Collectivism if you have to suffer from it. That's where tyranny's at. So it's whose bull's getting gold. Gord, guys like Barack Obama, he doesn't deal with tyranny.
No,
he's not going to move. He's not going to move out of elite neighborhoods into rural
inner city. Yeah,
Nevada or
he ain't going to live in
like,
the inner city anytime soon.
So I mean, you're just going to deal with these people who all of a sudden lost everything that they stood for in 1991 when the Soviet Union collapsed. But you got to give them credit. They reinvented themselves quickly into this new environmental, regionalism thing. It's the same. It was the same game, with the different cover story.
Oh, okay. No argument. Absolutely no argument. But I say that they're going to keep reinventing themselves. Okay, I want to ask you about a libertarian economist, Murray Rothbard.
Sure.
What's your take on him?
Well, Murray's, he's a very famous economist. I can't remember the exact pieces he's done, but Murray's been around for a long time. I think he was associated with George Mason University and a very strong libertarian. Now, okay, you were talking about fiat currency. What just happened today? Rand Paul now has a constituency, including the left, to pass the audit the Fed. That is going to be the most dramatic change, and it recognizes this kind of, economic wave that I'm talking about, Patricia, because how many years did they try to audit the Fed? Poor Ron Paul spent 25 years in Congress and put it up at least 3 times a year and never went anywhere. It's going to pass.
Well,
wow.
Audit the Fed. Let's end the Fed. That's...
Well, let's think about that. This is the third bank of the United States. Did you know that?
Yes, absolutely.
First 2 went bankrupt. If in 2009, when Barack Obama came in office, if you didn't have the Fed, who would control monetary policy? It would go back to the Treasury Department, and Tim Geithner and Barack Obama would have had full control of the monetary policy of the United States of America.
Well, I don't see any difference between them, actually. I figure they get the same handlers.
Sure.
I actually know Janet Yellen, and Janet's a liberal. Yeah, she's not. But these people. Her husband is a hard market right winger. I don't know if you knew that. George Ackerman. They're both. She was the #1 professor at the UC Berkeley Business School, which is usually radically more conservative than the campus. So, she hasn't really pushed the envelope like some of these other people, like Bernanke.
Yeah.
You came in this situation, and what is your job as the Fed? It's whatever Congress tells you to do.
Oh, I'm not buying that for a minute, Chris. Not for a minute.
Do you really think that Congress didn't, that Congress being in the hands of the Democrats for almost 50 years continuously, the House, that they wouldn't have set the game up so that it played the way they wanted to play it?
Well, I'm sure it's been set up somewhere. We're going to be coming up on a break real quick in about 2 minutes.
Sure.
So, but we'll be back, after the break, and we can finish this conversation if there's ever a finish to it. But to me, when you and I print money, it's called counterfeiting, and they say it's illegal because it debases the currency. But when the Fed does it, they call it economic stimulus.
Well, they don't call it
the Fed currency.
The Fed does not print money. The Fed, the banking system prints money through fractional banking.
Yes.
Now, the alternative to fractional banking is that you can't get a loan.
No, Chris, come on now. It's not just black or white. It's not Coke or Pepsi. I mean, there are other alternatives to the banksters.
Maybe one country, when you get rid of fractional banking, that regular people can borrow money. You can't tell me one because they end up being, aristocracy. But they're having, everything isn't necessarily black and white. It's the problem with giving somebody, power is how do you control them? If you put
Go ahead.
Today, nobody knows this about Rand Paul. I just wrote it for Breitbart. It hasn't even put up yet. And it's because of my friends and I know Rand Paul and I know Jeff Sessions and I know a lot of these people. Peter Navarro is the economist for Donald Trump. He teaches at UCI about 4 miles away from me, and we're good friends. But I want to tell you that we are in maybe a galaxy far, far away than we've been in the past.
Well, I'd love to see it. And so when are we after the break? We'll talk some more. I am starting the new year right, making my cue. We usually miss it, but I'm telling you, it's a new year. It's 2017, and I'm excited. And my co-host tonight is my friend Buddy Cox. Buddy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been fun. And you're a new Skype guy. Is this cool or what?
Oh, I'm just getting educated here.
That's great. And Chris Street, thanks. You're a breath of fresh air. Buddy and I are kind of like, we're not totally buying it, but we just love your optimism here. It's great.
We need it.
The fun part about, the competition of ideas is that somebody's going to win, right?
Yeah. I want to know, when do you see this miracle in America taking place?
We already saw it, Patricia. We got 100 years now. I mean, that's pretty clear to me.
I know, but I just want to know when is it going to trickle down where people are back to making money and not scared about foreclosures, and it's going to really have an impact in those teeth optional communities.
Okay, the United States didn't collapse financially. We didn't have that, what's called Minsky moment, where all of a sudden everybody panics. They pull all their money out of the bank and they go to mattresses and they give up. We were on the verge of that. And the reason we didn't collapse is because of the rise of fracking. That's already had a dramatic impact on America.
Well, I can see it, Chris. I want to say I can see that. North Dakota, miracle economy.
Right.
Texas,
but there
Texas
are other
is looking
there
good.
are other miracles that can't happen overnight called manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
You got to understand that when you make a commitment as a manufacturer, and I actually ran companies with 5,000 employees, and that's a pretty big group of people, and you're all over the place. But you make commitments that are 3 to 5 years out, and if you make them wrong, you pretty much can't stop them once you've started. So this idea that it happened really around 2007, 2008 is when it started. People didn't kind of figure out that it was there until 2013, 2014. You're now getting a president who's, people are starting to get the feeling that America can be great again. They know about North Dakota. They know about Texas jobs. They know about those kind of change. In California, you have this great socialist collapse on the verge because of the debt that California has. California has more debt than everybody else combined. California has a pension debt of $1 trillion.
Here you go, Buddy. Buddy wants to jump in. Go ahead.
Okay. California is another example. Remember I told you that the U.S. debt is kind of like a plug number. Mm-hmm. When you lost your economics, you sort of plug the stupid money in to try to pacify the people and somehow take care of it and not have to deal with the 800-pound gorilla in the room called competitiveness. But when you look at California, they built up all of these burdens, debt, and pension. And at the same time, California used to be the number 2 or number 3 state in the country for oil production. It went from 1.4 million barrels a day in 1970 to about 400,000 barrels a day by 2014.
Wait a minute. Give me those numbers again, Chris.
Went from 1.4 million barrels of oil a day to about 400,000.
Whew.
Okay.
That hurts.
That's right. That's 1 million barrels a day at an average of around $50, of which 13% goes right off the top into taxes. So you're talking about $70 million a day? $70 million a day of taxes that went away from California.
That adds up.
$7 million a day of taxes that went away.
Yeah,
California has an economic swing in their economy of around for taxes of around $10 billion. It means in bad times, it all goes down because they don't get any capital gains, and it's $10 lower in tax collection. And in good times, it comes up $10 billion. The entire employment for the state of California is $10 billion. That tells you the economic leverage that California now has because they had lost that oil money that they got used to living on. During the drought in California, everybody knows there's 5 years of drought. They made all these rules. You couldn't water your lawn. You couldn't do anything. People were spray painting their lawn green.
Oh my gosh, when you see a lake before the drought and
God, yeah.
Shocking.
Well, now, once again, get your hands on the 10 and 2. Jerry Brown, exempted water use by oil drilling and the oil industry during the drought. He's passed a bill. All of the Democrats and the communists voted for it because they're so panicked about cash flow. They need oil cash flow to come back in the biggest way. Now,
listen, these politicians everywhere, not just in California, they're like heroin addicts and they need their fix.
Yes.
That's actually I like that. I want them to understand where their taxes can come from because their current gig doesn't work. That dog don't hunt, but the new dog of new manufacturing plants and oil development and such like that, that is going to be a cornucopia for tax revenue, and you're going to need infrastructure in California. California hasn't built an above-ground water storage for 40 years. You know why? It all was paid for by the oil business. 40 years ago, you stopped needing more above-ground water storage to do oil drilling, and they didn't build any. You need 7 in California right now I understand it'd be good for the consumer, but it's going to be really important when the drought ends, which it's ending right now, and California can start fracking in the most rich fracking environment in the United States.
Now, when you say that the oil companies need that much water, that is concerning to Patricia and myself, that means that water may be mixing with that oil.
Okay, let me tell you how all oil's got water in it. You produce a gallon of oil and you get up to 7 or 8 gallons of water. Did you know that?
Yes, I did know that.
Yeah, it's called production water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, goes right back down in the ground. When you're producing a well with fracking, you use 1 to 13 million gallons of water. Doesn't really matter the quality of it. You just need it down there, and you throw a bunch of juice in it, some solvents, and it melts that rock, and you get it to come back up. Under environmental standards in America today, this just shows you how dumb environmentalists are. In Oklahoma, I'm drilling a well here. My production water that comes out of the well here has to be trucked to what's called a disposal well, an official environmental disposal well, and poured into that well. The problem is, remember your chemistry class when you were a kid? If you had one salinity over here and you had one salinity over there, and you put energy into it, you get this big pop. You're creating earthquakes by mixing salinity. So what you need to do is you need to bring the water up, and then you need to inject it right down in the same place you brought it up. Right now, that's illegal. It'll eventually get straightened out, but we're in the transition period.
So, Chris, the other concern for me is the control that these public sector unions have now over government. Everything that government does, all the rules they make, all the laws are in their favor. It's not just the fact they're bankrupting us. Are you got concerned about that? How is Trump going to deal with it?
Well, first of all, Reagan had it down. You starve the beast. You're never going to convince, collectivists and socialists and communists to vote themselves out of office or to cut their pay. What you do is you cut their taxes. You find ways to eliminate the position. You basically vote them off the island. As I said, thank you. I want you all out there in America to say thank you, Harry Reid. I know that's really difficult to say. Thank you, you numbskull, Harry Reid, for getting rid of, the filibuster about appointees, because appointees are about regulations. It's the departments that run America through the regulations, right? And Harry Reid changed the Senate rules so you only need 50 plus one vote vice president to get somebody appointed. He's the greatest. He's for a conservative. He's going to go down in history as the greatest friend you ever had. Thank you, Harry.
Patricia, we owe Harry an apology, don't we?
Yeah,
Patricia?
That's right.
We owe him an apology.
Oh, well, you know what? He's not going to get it from me anytime soon. Until our friends are out of prison and he's being sued and he's behind bars.
Right.
That's when I'll thank Harry.
Dumb is as dumb does, though. I got to tell you.
Oh, but dumb isn't. I can forgive stupid. I can't forgive criminality. He is a sociopath.
So, of course,
they all are, Patricia. They all are.
Exactly. That's politics. Poly means many. Ticks means blood-sucking creatures. I get
it. Okay, well, so once again, I play the cards sort of the way they're dealt, and I try to get myself in a position where I got better cards than other people got. If you look at the big card game going out there in the world right now, where would you want to play cards at?
Here.
That's right. If you go to China, I actually, 3 years ago, I wrote a piece called China Will Have the Mother of All Banking Crisis.
Oh, man, and it's starting there now.
But it's only because they're so bad, and we're just better than them.
No, they're not. They're not so bad. They just did what they thought they're supposed to do. I mean, it's going and blow. When it's good, why would anybody, why would anybody stop when it feels so good? I mean, that's why you get crashes in economies, is because people, if I did those, I did that house and I flipped it, and then I bought a couple condos and I flipped them, and I bought an apartment building and I flipped them. then I started building apartment buildings, and I built a bunch of them, and I flipped them, and I built more, and then I went to Wall Street and borrowed money, and pretty soon, America is building 378,000 apartments next year.
Yeah, Chris, I read your article about San Francisco, that they're offering incentives like 6 weeks free rent.
Right.
And stuff. They're trying to fill up these new luxury condos and even other places. I mean, San Francisco, that's always been such an expensive, tough place to rent.
Right. Well, my article was titled "Attention Groupon Shoppers, Free Rent in San Francisco." Well, the problem they have is, a lot of people complaining right now because their rent got jacked, and they should be unhappy. But you just had the largest leasing period in the history of the United States for new rentals. You had 50,000. That's an all-time record. The problem is you built 72,000 in the last quarter, and you're going to build 378,000 over the next year, which means that every week you're going to have hundreds of more empty apartments that can never find a tenant. And this thing is going to really crush prices. That's, Chinese did it with factories. We've done it with real estate. It's a common human thing, and government tries to regulate it, and they just become crony and make it bigger. That's all.
Well, I'd love to see that. But what it comes down to is that there was a time in America where 1 week's pay would be what your mortgage was, that people could afford home ownership, really afford it, and not have it turn around on you and bite you in the butt later and end up with, bankruptcies and foreclosures. I mean, a really solid economy before the money was this corrupted, a family could do that. One person could work. Look at all the big Victorian homes. You've got a bunch in California, different areas in California. I grew up in New England. My friend, her mom and dad bought this house, and it was a big Victorian house, and they lived on the downstairs, and they had 3 kids, and they lived just on the downstairs floor. They rented out the floor up above and the floor above that. And
Right.
That used to all be just one man with a business, and he was able to provide for a huge family in a house like that. We haven't seen those days. I can go on and on. I'll shut up.
Well,
You're
Patricia, let me do this. You said an economist, so I'll take that 4-letter word again.
Okay.
Economists know that for every service job, for every job at Starbucks, you get 1/2 extra job because, you go to Starbucks, you make some money, you go spend it somewhere else. So you actually, if you put a new Starbucks job in there, you'll get a half another job somewhere else. If you build a factory, every job you build in a factory will create 4.5 jobs. So manufacturing and factories are the express elevator versus the small stairs. That's why it's important to have manufacturing, because the economic leverage is enormous. A factory needs people to truck it. It needs people to work there. It needs people to do maintenance on the building. It needs places for you to eat. It needs carpenters to build that Victorian house. But if you've lost this entire manufacturing structure, almost, over half of the manufacturing jobs in America went away. Why would you expect that if you lost 12 million manufacturing jobs, that works out to that you lost another $54 million jobs that leverage on top of that job.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Chris.
So it's almost 70 million jobs that America lost.
But I'm saying this offshoring, and they kept saying, "Oh, America's just going to be, service industries and that kind of stuff." No, and they were saying that like everything's going to be fine. What did you think when all these jobs were going offshore?
Well, I understood it. Remember, we'd pretty much crushed the world. We took all their jobs away from the UK and from Germany and Japan. We pretty much crushed the world when we did this the first time around. So you got to be careful about comparative economics. You got to be competitive. And, America was going to pay a price. We compounded that price by going stupid economics. The Soviet Union collapsed, and we reinvented it as environmentalism and regionalism and all of this government overlay of regulatory. I mean, if it didn't work for the Soviet Union, why was it going to work for us?
Absolutely.
Well, it's never worked. They've always been a colossal failure.
Yeah, I just think that if you look at the numbers in government, they're on the bleeding edge. Did you note yesterday you had another federal court decision that said that government can cut pension payouts for existing employees?
Did you know that, Patricia?
That's the second one. That's the second one. Was of all places, what is the most liberal place in the world? The Ninth Circuit just made that ruling.
That was yesterday. I got to look that up. I was not aware of that.
Okay,
so it reported today.
Well, so the big state thing, this pension thing. Look at the post office. The post office has an internal war going on between the pensioners that are just about to retire and all the new hires that aren't getting crap for benefits because the post office can't afford it anymore. But look at the price of mail has gone through the roof, and the service is crap.
Well, I actually have run corporations where I used the post office. I actually had the post office in for consulting and really learned that they have some extraordinarily good technology that nobody ever asks about. They use FedEx and pay ludicrous prices. But, the post office is, once again, it's a mission in transition. The post office used to service America's producers. It was, you sent stuff by the post office and partial post. The biggest thing wasn't just letters from mom and dad. It was actually you sent packages. They weren't just gifts. You sent packages because you needed some bolts from here. You sent it by the mail. It goes there. We've lost a lot of that energy. And, the internet is fine, and we're having fun on Skype tonight. But this isn't a business. You can't get 50 million people making their living on the internet. If you go to San Francisco right now, you'll find that the 200,000 making their living on the internet are quickly becoming the 150,000, and they'll be quickly becoming the 100,000. So they're on the wrong side of the curve. If you don't actually make something over time, you really don't need service businesses to support things that aren't getting made.
It's not only that, Chris. Men, families, women, they got to work. There's nothing like a job. And here Obama, he's increased all the food welfare. It's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. People have forgotten how important it is to have a good paying job.
I want to tell you that it is so disrespectful, to have created ghettos in America, which aren't they reservations, sort of like what you did with the Indians?
Yep.
Okay. So, the reservations have become political, politics. Patricia said that. But I assure you, because I've actually done charity work, Christian charity work, and in places like Nickerson Gardens and Hacienda Village, these are really rough places in L.A., that the idea that you could make $20 an hour in manufacturing, would end the gang problem in L.A. in an hour. I mean,
well, I think it has to go back to a family. Did either of you ever heard of something called the Beveridge Plan? BEVERIDGE?
I haven't heard that, no.
Oh, I should look it up for you. The person that enlightened me on that was Joseph Rory. You can look at pictures, think back to pictures of the late 30s and early 40s where you would see a baseball game in an afternoon in major cities, and look in the stands. The stands are full. And they're full of people, men in suits and women in, dressed up. And people still had leisure time then.
Yeah.
Well, you go to
People
Cleveland,
were working, around the clock to make a living.
Patricia, I'm not going to agree with you. I can only speak for me. Most of the Americans I know really like to have work, feel like they're valuable and they're needed. I understand that we work too many hours in America. There are other places they work less. But most people in America, the 40-hour-a-week job you had was enough to just get by. You made all of your money in overtime, in double time. So everybody in America was really, and I've run factories, I can tell you that you spend what your paycheck is. It's overtime and double time that changes your life. It gets a nicer, Carford family.
What I'm saying about that, though, is, Chris, is it's bad. It's bad for families. When someone's working double time in overtime, they're not home with their family. The husband or the wife is missing out of the home.
The only thing worse than that, Patricia, is not working at all. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I get that. But that's what I'm saying. It needs to be.
I'm with you.
We're making bricks without straw. You're a Christian. You understand that term.
And Patricia, forgive me here. If you don't mind, could I just change this just real quick? I'm going to ask Chris a question. I've known him 25 years. I've never asked him about something that's very close to my heart and your heart. Chris, if you don't mind this, Chris was a Vietnam veteran. Fair enough, Chris?
Yes.
And I'd love to I've never asked him one thing about his service. Never. Something told me to just avoid it. It was such a tough war, but
so Chris, we'll just wait until we're in front of God and a million people here at Revolution Radio. We'll ask it now.
No, but here we go.
You're going to out
no,
Vietnam.
It's bigger. No, it's bigger than that. We've got wars going, God knows where, and I've always heard Chris though talk about certain things about wars that are going on now, and he didn't have a good tune about it. So I'd like to ask him now.
I grew up in Northern California, and I went to Vietnam, and immediately what I discovered is that there was no respect for the officers. There was no respect for many of the sergeants and such like that, because they weren't respectful people. They were there for a business. War had become a business in Vietnam, and you got to be careful about the military in that it's supposed to go take care of your problems and come back. I'm reading the most interesting books. 1917 was the year that Europe destroyed itself, and that America, came into the war in Europe, won the war, shocked the world, and after America left, we didn't join the League of Nations. The Europeans kept doing wars. They kept having wars with the Ottoman Empire. All of our problems in the Middle East are because what we did to these people, or not what we did to them really, but what was done by the French and the British, in the period from really 1870 through, the fall of the Ottoman Empire and breaking it up. We get to live the blowback. The problem with war is it's always got blowback. I can tell you, I write on national security, so I got to be careful what I'm going to say here. But two of my personal friends, very prestigious people, ex-military, were the ones given to Barack Obama in 2008 for his first military briefings. They spent 2 days with him. They said he was the most engaging person. He asked questions. He took notes. He was very interesting, and he was obviously very knowledgeable. He had lots and lots of questions. As they walked out, they both agreed that that it was just amazing. And one asked the other guy, "Do you think he believed any of it?" And the other guy goes, "Not a bit."
That I believe.
He's just that was his game. He was good at that listening game and an ideologue all the way. So when you talk about the military and you talk about what's going on right now, Barack Obama should be taken to the International Court in The Hague and tried for crimes against humanity. Wow. When you drone thousands and thousands and thousands of people, the problem with that is if I drone your father from 4,000 feet and he just disappears into dust, as his son, as his grandson, as his extended family, I will have I will be opposed to you for the next 10 generations. If I fight you in a battle in a war and, I win, you lose, your dad dies, there's an honorability about that. But Barack Obama has used the military as his personal political weapon. 15 years from now, you'll finally find out about it. But everybody in the military is astounded at how many people this guy has killed.
Yeah, Chris, we're serial killers all around the world. And having 900 military bases worldwide is ridiculous. And it's all for Israel. We are Israel's attack dogs. And it's just, it's got to stop. I mean, this, and you know what? A body can't take this kind of corruption. If you have this kind of corruption going on in your body where you're diseased in this way and things are this bad and your attitude is this bad, that the body's going to die.
At 22 suicides a day. Yeah.
But, I'm sorry. I'm not one of those people that goes and worships veterans. I know a lot of men go to war, thinking, or go in the military thinking they're serving their country. But then they should grow up a little bit after that and see that they're just all wars are banksters' wars. Mr. Michael Rivera, I believe that's who wrote that article, but that's totally true. And all they're doing,
Patricia, the problem with war is, it's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. You got to use it sometime. It's another form of politics. It's politics. Don't be dissuaded by that. But sometimes you actually have to confront issues.
We got
right here at home.
This subject because I'm unglued
so I
on
think
this part.
Our problem in the Middle East is we created $100 oil. We made all of those people have massive cash flow. Do you really think they're not going to spend it?
Yeah, and who set that up? Henry Kissinger. He's also the same one that said military men are just stupid animals to be used as pawns in foreign policy.
I understand when you're in America now and you've got the greatest oil boom in the history of the planet, growing faster than it did. Los Angeles grew by 1,000% in 8 years between 1900 and 1908. That's how big the boom went. Mm-hmm. So you don't have the kind of people move, because you do things more with equipment now. But this oil boom in America is going to eliminate $100 oil. It's already gone for the next century. You're probably going to eliminate $50 oil. And my guess is you'll get down somewhere in the $30 to $35 range.
Who's the man that wrote the book, The Energy Non-Crisis? I'm trying to think. He's a pastor. He says that oil should be $1.25. I mean, from what we have in Prudhomme Bay and Gull Island and places like that, Alaska can.
I know the numbers. That's probably not going to happen. I know what the costs are. I mean, things do actually have costs. You talked about some of that inflation. I'm just saying with inflation in the future, it's never going to get past 50, and it's probably never going to get past 40, and it could be in the 20s. And that's okay for America because we've got fracking, which probably is going to have a lifting cost of around $6 a barrel.
Okay, somebody in the chat room said, Lindsey Williams. Right, Rayo, thank you. Lindsey Williams.
Are you telling me that the Saudi princes are going to become Bedouin again?
Oh, Saudi Arabia will collapse in the next 4 years. They're already trying to. This is a society of 32 million people. 5.5 million people work. 3.5 million have phony jobs from the government. So there's really only 2.5 million people that actually work. And everybody's taken care of with these entitlements. Now the Saudi government, they have $700 billion in the bank. They're spending about $180 billion a year. In 4 years, it'll be zero. How do you take the money away from these people?
How's that, Patricia? Is that pretty good?
How do you take that money
out of that?
I mean, why would I support their 16,000 Saudi royalty? Why would 32 million people put up with 16,000 Saudi royalty if they weren't getting great entitlements?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a host here at Revolution Radio. His name is Dennis Feccio, and he lives in the Middle East. He lives in Ridja most of the time, I think. But he travels. He does consulting and different engineering type things. And the stories are that those people don't put up with nonsense from the government. They go out and riot in the streets, and the government backs down. So they have a much better handle on controlling their government than we do here.
So, Chris, to complete the circle, then talk about the state of Israel. I know you too, you and Patricia. That's your hot button. So, what do you think?
Well,
of that?
I mean, there is no justification for allowing Israel to steal land. They steal land every day in form of new settlements. You know, they have a name for it. It's supposed to be something good. They just steal the land, and then they use American planes and bombs to, bomb the Palestinians.
Yeah, we've been giving Israel $10 million a day for the last 40 years.
No, we haven't been giving them. It's a different number, but Patricia, the bottom line is they make sure that they drop bombs that say "Made in America" on the Palestinians.
It's wrong.
You're in this situation where, the Middle East has been so important to public policy that everybody's put money over there. But America is leaving. If it ain't about oil, it ain't about us.
Well, I'm gonna share a meme, and it's something that I think it was Ariel Sharon said. Hold on, I'm gonna open it. I got to click here to do it.
And while you're doing that, Patricia,
okay.
and Chris, then you said, so which state do you want in South Africa? That was your comment to me the other day regarding Israel. It's like, okay, we're going to give you a new state, and it isn't going to be in the Middle East.
Right.
Which state in South Africa?
What I meant by that is, Israel is South Africa. I mean, it works against the Palestinians, but over time it's not going to work at all.
Well,
so
you're talking to someone that's really checked out on the South Africa situation. Yeah. Karen Smith is a friend of mine. She's been my first video that I made was about South Africa. South Africa, past, present, no future. And it was because of the Russian Jewish communist involvement in South Africa that South Africa is in the state it's in today.
It's in the state it is today because they have 36 million black people and 3.5 million white people.
Eventually
that didn't work.
And of those 3.5 million white people, over 1 million of them are in homeless camps because they've made it against the law for white people to work.
But Patricia, I'm not debating politics. I'm just using arithmetic.
Right.
The problem with the Middle East. The problem with the Middle East is at $100 oil, and you can shut down America. You got to be there. If it's not $100 oil and you can't shut down America, why would you go? I mean,
that's good.
And people really don't. In general, they like to see their money spent on something that makes sense. If you're telling me that I'm going to cut the oil off and your car's going to stop in Minnesota, that's a bad thing, okay? But if they shut down the oil in the Middle East and your car runs just fine because you get your oil from California or North Dakota or Pennsylvania or now Alaska and Cleveland and all those places, and you haven't even started on, America needs $1 trillion infrastructure program, but it's not Barack Obama's shovel-ready roads. No. It's natural gas pipelines. You should have natural gas pipelines that I could wield gas from California to New York to Minnesota and down to El Paso. It should be a complete system so you can move that anywhere in the country. Now, you can't take natural gas and take it to the rest of the world unless you put it in LNG tankers.
LNGs.
It costs $4.50 to package it up and put it on the tanker, and when it gets there, take it off. If it sells for $2.90, cost a $4.50 cost of packaging isn't going to really equalize energy costs in Asia. That's why China is in bad news position. They've got an energy problem. So America needs to focus on where its importance is. And right now, the most important place in the world is the United States of America, driven by energy costs. It has you'll find this interesting. Of all the stupid things that were done during the recession, was cutting bank
leverage by 50%. I don't know if you knew that. You went from 24 to the dollar. For every $24 of loans, you need $1 deposit. You cut that down to $13. So,
there was no money. Money dried up.
Right. But you did this because somebody said it was a good idea to shrink, these bad banks, these bad bankers. Now, in Europe, they actually expanded it. In China, they doubled it. But having as stupid as it was to cut lending that much and wipe out all these people and caused all these foreclosures, you now have the ability to expand bank lending. Wouldn't it be great if you could expand bank lending for, to build factories and build houses and don't have to worry about people having to rent apartments because their $26 an hour manufacturing job with, 5 to 10 hours of overtime will buy them that new house.
Well, that's one way to look at it. It's been done successfully other places in different ways. But I want to go back and just say what Ariel Sharon said in October of 2001. He says, I want to tell you something very clear. Don't worry about American pressure on Israel. We, the Jewish people, control America, and the Americans know it.
Patricia, I understand that. I've been a Wall Street investment banker. I understand the game. The game has changed.
Okay, well, I'm happy to hear you say this, Chris. I really am. Hey, my guest tonight, everyone, is Chris Street. He's a writer. You can catch his work. One of the things he does over at Breitbart. But when you put his name in the search engine to pull up all his articles, and he writes, you're a prolific Breitbart writer, I must say, Chris. I mean, you've every other day, and sometimes every day, you've put out a great article there. But be sure and spell his name with 2 S's, Chris Street, 2 S's on Chris. And so he's our guest tonight. And he's our guest tonight because my friend Buddy Cox, it's about time you showed up here, Buddy, recommended him. So I'm so happy you did.
Once in a while, a blind squirrel gets a nut. So Chris, I have one more big question for you, if you don't mind, Patricia.
Go right ahead, buddy. You're the co-host tonight. Go.
What business does the federal government have in owning tens of millions of acres of land?
You mean, why do they own
valuable land? I'm not talking about Yosemite. I'm not talking about Yellowstone for all the folks to go have a good party.
Buddy, I think they need to sell it. Isn't that a radical idea?
How's that?
I understand you guys got some problems there with the Bundys and such like that going on. Do you understand that I can't steal it unless I grab it if I'm government, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the law, the way it's written, says the land must be used for.
We're cutting out.
Up here. Sometimes
this is critical. Why? That's the government. It's the government. I know it's the government did it.
Okay, so Chris, I want you to restate that because you broke up a little bit.
The government broke us up, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
The powers to be.
Stupid. The regulatory enforcement in America is insane.
Oh.
If you read the laws on the use for the Bureau of Land Management, it must be used for the highest and best purpose. So they must make it revenue generating by law. What they do now is they overlay it with a bunch of environmental stuff so that it can never be used. It can never, pays all these consultants and idiots running around to make sure it's land banking. The idea is to get you off the land and get you into the city where you'll start voting Democrat.
But here's the thing, Chris. FLIPMA and the Forestry Act that all came out, they were a day apart. And this isn't my research. This is Dr. Angus McIntosh's work. And in FLIPMA and that other one, these bureaucrats completely ignore it, or they willfully ignore it, says that existing property rights aren't affected by any of these new monuments and all anything new that they do. Existing property rights stay the same.
Well,
it's right. It's written right into FLIPMA.
Well, come on, wait a second, Patricia. In the appointment of these new national monuments, the president may have a problem in getting rid of them. Did you know that? but he doesn't have a problem of tweaking it in such a way that he can shrink it 99.9% in size. Did you know that?
No, but they have no business being in the land business. They need to get back in their 10 square mile box. One
Amen.
tentacle after at a time.
Patricia, that's probably about to happen. Do you think that Donald Trump knows something about real estate?
Yeah, I think he knows something about bankruptcy.
I can tell you,
But a lot of the same Bush cabal is going to be in his.
Hey, bankruptcy laws in America make sense. You got it. What are you going to do? You're just going to, let these things. You run out of money. The bank takes them over. It just melts down. Nothing happens. You have bankruptcy law. Trump played the rules the way they were played. He went bankrupt in Atlantic City, and the banks could have thrown him out, or they could use his name and restructure the company and come back. And, you're not going to be – everything isn't in a straight line. You go up and down. Anybody who's tried to build businesses can tell you some horror stories about the mistakes they made. I'm okay with that. I'm a guy who wants to get higher up, not, do what the leftists do and try to knock businesses some horrible
restrict.
Thing. Yeah. We need the highest and best use of that property. So as I said, I just gave you I actually lecture and consult on what's called the Administrative Procedures Act of the United States of America. That's what controls regulatory authority in America. And if you read the Administrative Procedures Act, you will realize that the act itself isn't bad. It's the regulatory administration.
Exactly.
That's horrible.
Exactly. And arming those idiots in all these alphabet agencies. But, there was someone, it was in the 50s on a show called Longines Chronoscope. And they were interviewing, and it was a conservative news magazine that half hour, 3 times a week. And they were interviewing a New York congressman, and he was on a committee that was investigating the Department of Justice. Now, the Department of Justice is a 14th Amendment deal. The founders never had anything to do. They hated the judiciary. They did not want a federal judiciary, at least Madison and Jefferson. And so when they said no, but they have to, the first place you take over is the Department of Justice if you're going to set up a totalitarian regime. And he said, yes, and the police, because they have to be able to control the interior. And that's exactly what's happening. Until we get the courts back, we can have this economic boom all we want, but these courts are what's fueling the tyranny in our country.
Yes.
Okay, Patricia, I just gave you a breaking news that the Second Court of Appeals of the United States yesterday probably won't be published until, maybe Monday, voted to give government the right to cut pensions.
Yeah, that's good. Every now and then, Chris, they're going to come up with a decent ruling. I don't disagree.
But Patricia, you're also going to be in a position where Donald Trump is probably going to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices. He could possibly control this thing for the next 70 years. Well, this isn't a bad time. The chances are, if you're a liberal, you're freaking out.
Chris,
this is the worst time it could happen to you.
It's not just cutting the pensions. These folks are untouchable.
No, the pensions are the most untouchable, buddy. I'm saying that it's all, the idea that the police have any power in America, Americans are armed to the teeth. God help anybody tries to invade this place. It'd be insane. You haven't had a revolution because you haven't had, there hasn't been really a winning combination. When you start to get these factories and this oil boom and the things I'm talking about, do you really think the regular people are going to let the left come in and shut it down?
Okay.
They need an example. You got to, lead, follow, or stand aside. You got to have some leading. We've been following and standing aside. It's a new dawn. The United States, it's our century, and we own it. It's everybody else's problem. Make America great again.
Patricia, do we? It's hard to beat, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Chris obviously smoked the hope.
I warned you.
He's a real smart guy. I think, I'd love, Chris, I'd love you to be right. I can't wait to have you back on the show down the line and say, wow, you were right. This is awesome. I mean, we're starving the beast. We're actually getting rid of the beast and getting states' rights back, the real de jure governments back in place. This is awesome.
Now, Chris, no names here, but somebody very close to me, female, suggested that she wasn't too sure about Mr. Trump. Are you? You're pretty sure?
Yeah,
huh?
no, I absolutely understand who he is. He's a guy. He's a guy, and he's
not
dance.
that way. No,
Wait a second. I'm going to say he's a guy who's going to dance with the girl that brung him. And that's an old saying that, if you've got a constituency, if you've got a constituency that supports you, this guy has not crossed the constituency.
Right.
Everything he's done has been honorable.
They've all invested in him, Chris.
Right. And everything he's done has honored what his promises have been so far. This guy.
Oh, wait. I got one big thing there. He promised all during the campaign to see Hillary in an orange jumpsuit. And now he's back.
Give him time.
But she's done so much.
Patricia, he's not going to do that. You know who's going to do that?
Sessions.
Parit Bravara, the Southern District Prosecutor in New York.
Okay.
Everybody knows that what the Clintons did with their money was one thing. What they did with the foundation, that's just criminal, and that's all in play. She's gonna, she needs to have a medical. She needs to work on that medical. She's going to need to be senile when it comes her time.
Right. I hold the Clintons responsible for pulling the trigger that killed Lavoy Finicum.
Absolutely.
But why would he not? They thought that, in their world, it was a good thing. It felt good. It was the right thing to do. How dare you take me on?
Yeah.
And the problem, I understand that, Bundy's lawyer got tased in the court.
Oh yeah, that was outrageous.
It really is outrageous. Regular mom and dad probably weren't sure about all the stuff that he did in Oregon because he went too far there. That's my opinion, is it? But and I know the area and I know the people and I know he just went too far. But when they tased the lawyer in the court, I don't know a person in the West Coast that a regular person didn't think that they were jackasses. Didn't think that it really was
especially
crazy.
When the judge told those marshals to back off.
Wow.
Yeah,
she could have just said, I'm going to hold you in contempt. She didn't bother to say that. They just went rogue and went crazy at the end because they were so mad that they lost. They're such government supremacists.
Okay. And you understand that Trump's new people, Jeff Sessions, friend of mine, Jeff Sessions, good boy from UCLA, Upper Low, Alabama, is going to be the new justice.
Great. Well, we've got to. I'm going to send you something tomorrow.
Patricia, but we really got to put our hands on the 10 and 2 and understand we're on for a pretty good ride here. I hope it goes all the way.
Okay, well, you know what? I'd love to share your enthusiasm, and we're gonna keep an eye on this. I believe in being positive. I really do. I think we've created a lot of this reality by being so negative about it all. But I'm for a great ride. I'm all in. I'm all in.
And I'll tell you what,
Chris,
I've watched Patricia. She is one of the bravest people I've ever met. She stuck with this thing, and it was bad times. I'm very proud of her.
You get, Americans are some tenacious people. Thank God we've got the barbecue, right?
Yeah.
That's good. Okay.
Well, where else can people hear you, Chris? I do a lot of radio.
I do a lot of radio and TV, but I used to do a radio show every day, and it got to be too much. I write 2 to 3 articles, and I'm involved in a bunch of consulting business. And I do some things on national security, but you can get me on Breitbart every day, just CHRISS, last name Street, and you'll get God knows how many articles. I usually put out 2 a day, sometimes 3, sometimes 4.
Wow. But, I some of those writing pills. How many cups of coffee do you drink?
Well, I know what I do and I do what I love. And that's, I made a choice. I used to write 100-page articles for Wall Street, and I had to learn how to write, 600 pages, which is less than a page and a half for my wife, so that she can understand. Because
that's right.
My wife is tough on me because she didn't cut me any slack. Loves me dearly, but boy, she can be tough.
That's my cousin there.
Yeah,
that's right. She can be a taskmaster. But I think that we live in a time of such incredible change that we're living the dream, and we've got to all understand that if you've seen how bad it is, it's really going to be great. And this has happened in America before. This is our turn. This is our time, and I'm happy to be part of it.
Well, that's exciting. Buddy, are you buying it yet? I mean, isn't this exciting to talk with someone that's this upbeat about things?
I warned you.
I feel like singing "Happy Days Are Here Again," but when they actually use that, that's when they when FDR stole the convention that time, the Democratic convention. Yeah,
once a week. I talk to Chris. I always come out feeling better than I did going in.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Okay, guys.
So what are we buying stock in right now?
I don't do that, but I can tell you that it's not stock you want to buy. You want to start a business. Big money over the next decade is not going to be made in the stock market. It's not going to be made on Wall Street. It's going to be made on Main Street. People need to start getting out there. People need to start talking about what they can produce and how they can be part of this.
There'll be a lot more.
Of the 420, marijuana. I mean, marijuana millionaires, dispensaries.
Crazy,
what do you think of that?
Crazy.
Do you understand the term Philip Morris?
Oh yes.
They're going to crush. Philip Morris is going to look around and eventually crush everybody. That's what they do.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of concerned that such big money and corporatism has taken over the 420 business.
I understand. The idea of weed, being an industry, but please, come on.
So, Chris, now that we're going to have 10 million more acres available of prime grazing land, I guess we probably ought to think about raising some cattle, huh?
10 million, I'd say probably. I'd say it's all going to be up for grabs.
Well, I'll tell you, it doesn't matter how many acres you have for grazing because there's 4 companies that completely control the meat packing business. They have a monopoly, and that's what's killing ranchers, not being pushed off their land.
Patricia,
capitalism.
In a regulatory environment that changes, those 4 guys don't get to have that concentration. They have that concentration because of regulations.
Awesome. That's exactly right.
Beautiful.
They voted in.
Beautiful.
Buddy Cox, Chris Street, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
I'm encouraged.
Good evening. All right.